Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. If this is your first IG Live with me, um, just looking for my friend Allie to invite her to the call. I'm excited about this conversation, you guys. Uh, this is the book that we're going to be talking about, what comes next. So hopefully you can go and buy one. It's awesome. Hi, Allie. So I just, uh, I'm gonna to join me. Should be good. So Allie and Nick, who wrote this book, just launched this week. Hi!
Hello, friend.
I'm so excited to see you. How are you?
Excited to be seen.
Yeah.
I have one of those too.
Oh my goodness. I obviously just read this for today's session, and it's amazing. I'm already thinking about all the different places and ways that I can share this. FYI, I'm also preaching in a couple weeks, and so
You're amazing.
when with the disciples and Jesus, when he's about to leave, and then he's like, I'm leaving now, and they're like, wait, how can we follow you if we don't know where you're going? And then he's like, have no fear.
Exactly. I like that.
So I'm like, Allie, thank you. My church thanks you already.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. We love talking about this stuff. As you know, we love thinking about where we're going, and that we don't just want to happen upon where we go. We want to be intentional and purposeful. We want to be driven by the gospel and by the call of the community around us. So hopefully putting some tools in people's hands to help them do that.
You can see that it's already going to be really helpful. Anyway, so before we get into it,
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year!
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Yeah.
Come to America, but not if you have COVID.
I don't, thankfully, and the border is closed, so. But I mean, I guess Canadians can go to the States, but you guys can't come up here.
I know, I'd rather come to you.
I know, come on up.
So
I don't know if it's that much better in Toronto, unfortunately. Sorry.
everything's better in Canada.
I have to agree. So, how are you doing these days? It's kind of
good. Working at home, a lot more restful now that the book is kind of out.
yes.
Spent the last, since December of 2018, have been working on the book. So it's fun to see some fruit of that.
Yeah.
But sad that it's mostly from behind a computer screen and not with people, in bookstores and workshops and things like that. So excited about that, but I think we're all in a place of life we didn't quite anticipate.
If you ever want to plan a book tour when we're all done.
When we're all done. Absolutely.
Hit the road.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. So yeah, could you just introduce yourself to everybody? Who are you, and who's Nick, and what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm Allie. I live in Houston, Texas, where I do a variety of things. My day job is working in space exploration, and my passionate personal vocation is in helping people think about the future and in helping them do that in practical ways. So I am a master's student in foresight at the University of Houston.
Wow.
And kind of am using that in a lot of the strategy work that my partner Nick Skytland and I do together. Our passion is really, as we've been at NASA, we've seen so much the power of international collaboration and mass collaboration. And so really taking that work and applying it across the global body of Christ, taking that work and applying it in launching companies into new works and growing their team and helping them be more effective at their own mission. I think our real personal passion is to be able to help people identify the future they want to see and help
Mm.
identify the pivot points and kind of the leverage points between here and there. So we can't guarantee the future, we can't predict it,
Right.
but we can say, if this is
Wow.
your goal, this is the kind of the way you can navigate the uncertainty towards that goal, with faith that where God will take you will be better than you could ask for or imagine.
Oh man, you just said so much there, and I have so many questions. But what I did pick up was, well, you're doing your master's in foresight? Like, yeah, you've mentioned that before of like being a futurist.
Yeah.
And then you also said the future that you prefer,
Mm-hmm.
which then says to me that there's different kinds of futures out
Yeah,
there.
there are.
And then you also said something about planning, which is awesome, but then also not being able to predict the future, which is
Right.
completely obviously true. So, can you
Yeah.
explain what a futurist is?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Futures is really navigating in a specific area. What are the possible futures? So we talked first about possible futures, right?
Hmm.
Which the reality is any future is a possible future, right? There's no limit on the possible futures. So then
Okay.
narrow that down to plausible futures.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
all those possibilities, what are the things that are plausible? It's probably
Right.
not plausible that the sky will be green tomorrow. It's probably not plausible that
Right.
I'll walk on the ceiling.
Ah,
So then we take the plausible futures, and then out of the plausible futures, we love to talk first about the expected future. The expected future is, if I don't do anything different, this is what is most likely to happen.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the direction that we're going. If there's no change, this is where
Right.
my church will go, this is where my company will go, this is where my life will go.
Right.
But then for many of us, that expected future and our preferred future are different.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Here's what will happen if I don't make any change. But I really like that thing over there.
Right.
How do I make a shift from here to there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the sweet spot of what Nick and I love to do, is go, what's the difference between where you're going to go if you don't change anything, where you want to go,
right?
How can we help you identify a path to navigate from here in that direction? And the thing is, when I walk halfway there, all of a sudden I see a new realm of possibility.
Oh, yeah.
The horizon looks different. The things that I understand from that vantage point are different.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun kind of to map those intersections and see what makes people, what drives people, what motivates their work.
Yeah. Wow.
And to do that for all different kinds of communities.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think like when you are on a path, I guess the least of resistance, the path of least resistance, or the passive path, like this is the trajectory of your life, your organization, your family, if you do status quo.
Right.
But then I think when you see something exciting over here, that is the point of innovation.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so interesting, right? Because as believers, we tend to say, well, we trust God with the future. So I should take my expected path.
Yeah.
And part of our argument is to say
wow.
that's not the case. Like, God doesn't create us just to be passive spectators in life. We're to be co-creators to make the world better than we found it. We're going out creating a future, not just, in a passive way going, Lord, whatever you might will.
Right.
And so helping people think differently about that. The other issue that's related to that is really around people are just distracted, right? We have crazy things going on in the world. So I can't even think of the future because I'm just trying to think about this afternoon.
Totally true.
Right? It's totally true. But look what happens to our lives if all we do is deal with the fire in front of us. So helping people see more big picture, I think is a really high value.
Oh my goodness. Well, you just said a lot there too, because first of all, like just to say, oh, I'm just going to do as God wills is a good goal to have, but it forgets, obviously, like it's actually kind of bad theology that in Genesis, Adam and Eve were cooperating, co-working with God, which is incredible that God would even want to work with us, but we have a role, and it's such an honor. Like, that's an honor to not just like throw away,
Yeah.
but God was like, yeah, I loved creating, and I want to give you that same joy of creating.
Yeah, right? And we forget
Mm,
the part. They got to name the animals. They
yeah,
decided to plant things in the garden.
yeah.
Like God wants us to engage it in that way. And I think so often when we lose our imagination about the future,
Mm,
it's because we forgot that calling that we have as children of God to be, like you said, co-creators with.
yeah, wow. Um, so before we go into, maybe I wanted to talk about maybe a couple of the obstacles which you've already kind of articulated. I just want to say hi to everyone who's listening. And if you have questions for Allie, which I hope you will, I hope you like type them in, pelt them at her, because this is going to be an amazing opportunity. Kind of rare, I think. I don't think that I've ever heard you, maybe I haven't been in the rooms with you where you're able to actually articulate all the things that you're talking about right now. And we've been friends for years, so I'm excited about that. And my friend Lori's here. Hi, Lori. And she is a business professor at Redeemer University, and just this is totally perfect for you too. Like, I'm already like seeing all these awesome places. Also for me, okay, I'm gonna make it personal. um, I have been trying to clear the decks since mid-December, just so I can have less distraction, like you just said,
Mm-hmm.
and just create space in my time, my schedule, my mind, so that I can actually um, hear what God has for me, like, and discern and have wisdom and pray and kind of poke around and like, but there's a lot. Okay, so I'm like an Enneagram 6. I don't know if you know that. So that means that I'm driven by fear. And so I am, scared of a lot of things,
Yeah.
especially the unknown. And I think that's one of the obstacles. Can you like what advice would you give me?
So first of all, I would say the best way to drive out fear is clarity, right? And is love,
Mm,
right? Love drives out fear, the scripture tells us. But I don't have to fear a scenario when I bring it out of the darkness and into the light. And so I think for a lot of us, we're afraid of the future. Uh,
yes.
we don't know what it holds, right? It feels mysterious. It feels unknown, right?
Right.
Every day we're having a new crisis in the news.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And so, but when we start to landscape that future, when we start to look at all those possibilities, what it does is it helps us recognize, hey, these aren't that new, these aren't that different.
Mm,
Talking to someone just this week about how many times the church has endured the kinds of crises we're enduring even just this week, right?
hmm.
When we start to survey that, then I can take a deep breath and go, I'm not the first one in the world. This isn't the first time. And
Right.
me, right, take it down a notch.
Hmm.
I think you're doing the right thing and going, I need some quiet space. I need some peace in that to discern, but helping put that fear on the shelf in that way, in my
Hmm.
experience, is the thing that really helps us have new eyes for what the future really will hold. The other thing I would say to you is, and this is actually something we encountered a lot in writing the book, was people would jump to the end. They would go, I know
Mm.
XYZ in 2021, so how am I going to jump to that? I know I want to have this impact. Like, they're jumping to the end of the story.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And what we really realized, which is why there's 8 intersections in the book, is you have to deal with all the layers. So
Mm-hmm.
the intersection in the book, for example, when you look at it, is about how we identify. So if you're thinking about what you want to look at in the future, starting with who am I? What am I
Yeah.
called? What are my commitments, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes on to, where do I belong? So if that's who I am, where do I belong? Well, I belong this in my church, and that means
Hmm.
this. I belong in my job, and that means that, right? Starting to map it out in order. Like, really, my favorite saying is, how do we eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Ew.
Right? No, it gives you the one bite at a time, because
Yes.
why I think people get afraid and people are hesitant to dig in, because it feels so big to go,
Yeah.
go anywhere and do anything. So
Okay.
layers of those questions.
Yeah.
Because if you change something at the first intersection, which is identity, you change everything in every layer after that.
Yeah, right.
And so we wonder why we try to
Mm.
talk about a mission statement without looking at all those layers. And I think that's really a reason why we wanted to give the book to people, so that they would see
Yeah.
all the.
Ooh, well, that gives me a little bit of hope that it's possible. So, yes, it's daunting to acknowledge that my fears are actually often valid. Like, where
Yeah.
I'm not off my rocker. I'm like not yet. I'm not crazy yet. I'm getting there. But also that there are things that I have already that I have that are strengths, and also weaknesses, and also gifts that God has given me.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's an amazing foundation from which to build. And so like all organizations have an essence, have an identity, and have like a foundation from which to build. It's not like I'm going to then tomorrow going to run for Prime Minister of Canada. Like my life has not
Come on, girl.
like not yet moved in that direction. But that would be a pretty like pretty steep learning curve if I was going to move in that direction. But like where my identity is, who am I, what have I done, where am I going, but not to deny my identity or who I am.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the point that you're making, to take it to even the next level, is you learn that for you. I learned that for me. And then we can choose to collaborate and say, oh, if you know this for you and I know this for me, this is how our collaboration becomes even stronger.
Ooh.
Because you have an identity and a mission, and I have one,
Yeah.
and it starts to shape that vision for collaboration to create
Yes.
change, which is what God wants to do in the world.
Incredible.
So you don't have
Because
to be me. I don't have to be you. None of us have to be Nick, because we tried anyway. But
I can't run Ironmans.
of togetherness.
Yeah, that also gives me a lot of hope too, because and that's what community is for. Like God did not create us individuals alone, right, in the world, but he actually created us to be in community because he himself is community, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so we are, which gives me so much hope and like comfort. I'm like, oh, thank you that I'm not just off in la la land being crazy over here.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you and Nick are so good at. You are like, not only are you geniuses, but you are so good at bringing people along and inviting people to come with you.
Thank you. That's what we're really passionate about, and just recognizing that coming along together makes us better, that coming along together allows us to do more than any of us can do alone. I mean,
Right.
there may be others out there. I struggled so much when I came to NASA with imposter syndrome. I'm not smart enough, talented enough to be here. Even in the church, like a lot of times, even in my own church, I'll be like, I don't know enough. I'm not talented enough. Like, why?
Right. Yeah.
But when I recognize that I don't need to be as talented in the same way as the person next to me. I don't need to have the same background as the guy who works across from me, but if we can then our puzzle pieces start to actually fit together, and we can reflect the whole picture on the front of the box instead of us trying to look as like we're the exact same puzzle piece.
Oh man, thank goodness for that too. Like I don't want to be a caricature. I don't want to be like a two-dimensional like thing. I want to be a three-dimensional person, human, who's taking risks and kind of enjoying the process, which is also kind of what is important. Like it's not about the destination. It's actually, for me, it's about how we got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun part, right? It's just our nature as humans seems to be to bifurcate that stuff. Like, let's talk about that about race, or let's talk about that about this or that issue. But all of those things together, how do they play? How does denomination and racial background,
right,
economics, and all these pieces, they're all part of our story, and we can't. I know you know.
Well, I love it. Not only that, I love it. Like, I was teaching a leadership course this last fall, and I was really harping a lot on diversity and
Yeah.
how the more diverse our teams, I'm not even talking gender, although that's super important. I'm not even talking ethnicity, which I'm very passionate about. I'm talking about like education and perspectives and background and experience and expertise and thought. So
Yeah.
basically diversity of thought. The more diverse we are as a team, the stronger we are. Um, but it doesn't mean we don't have like role models.
Of course, absolutely. And I love that because in my own church, right, we have certain personality types that we promote to leadership.
Mm,
Specific ones,
right.
right? So we have certain backgrounds that we make do certain things, helping people think differently about that,
Mm,
so that I don't walk into NASA and go, because I'm not a PhD rocket scientist, I have nothing to offer.
right.
I have a different way of seeing the world. And we have people who we just this week we talked to about the book who go, well, I don't have technologists in my church. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You have people who are different than you.
Yes.
You have people who have different skills than you. You have people who have different ideas than you. Ask them.
Yes.
Start with asking questions. How do you see the world? What's real for you? Where are your relationships? Why are they there? Like, you're going to all of a sudden make that tapestry deeper, and you're going to see another layer of it that you wouldn't see before.
Yeah. It's that richness of your community again, because even if you're looking at the elephant, everybody has a different perspective depending on their angle.
Right?
But it's the same animal.
Story, right?
Yeah.
The blind man and the elephant, right? I
Right.
feel actually, oh, he had the tail. Oh, it's big, he had the trunk, right? But
Yeah.
no one saw the whole picture. And I
Yeah.
think the passion we have about mass collaboration, we've done many with you,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to see the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
Missionaries, we talk with people, how we see the church in the world, very different than how they see the church in their world. You
All
know,
right.
and around. And I need that. Like, I
Mhm.
want that to be part of my life and part of my heart.
Me too.
I know.
Okay, Allie, like reality is that it's like pulling teeth, honestly, to get churches and organizations and companies and people and even my family to move, right?
Great.
Um, but when they start to move, it's beautiful. But for me, I kind of want to like dig into that stagnant,
Yeah.
rigid, fear-filled existence, like which is so many organizations.
So,
So then, like, how would you encourage them to move out of like that? How, like,
yeah.
what kind of hope would you give them? What kind of poke would you give them?
So this is why we need connection, right?
Okay.
So when we were at when I started at NASA, like, it's a government bureaucracy. Even NASA is a
Mm,
government bureaucracy, right? And we were looking at how we were solving the problems of exploration, and that's really how we
yeah.
started this. What if we could use these kind of people's insight to apply to this problem? And so many people are like, that's not possible. That's too complicated. That's too expensive. That's too different. All the reasons, right? And what we did is we started with one person, and that was who saw it differently
Mm,
and said, but what if we could do this? And so he was really standing on that precipice of, well, I see it differently, but everybody tells me I'm wrong. So then comes me, who said,
oh,
I see that vision that you're talking about. Let's run at it.
oh, that's awesome.
And then comes one more, right? It's like the TED Talk about how do you start a movement?
Yes.
Leader who starts the movement, he's the crazy guy dancing in the
Yes.
park. It's the follower who comes and dances with him,
Yes.
started a movement. And so what I'd really say to the person who feels stuck is
Yeah.
just find one person. Find one person and help them see your vision and stick with them. And then you start building them one at a time. You don't need everybody.
Wow.
Bring one person into the vision. That's how you did the same in so many collaborations. You had a different vision and you said, let me find someone who sees this like I see it. I'll bring one person in.
Yeah.
And could bring one more,
Yeah.
right? So build it one at a time. If
Yeah.
a little bit of a different vision, you don't know how to get there, find a friend. And
Yeah.
that's what we were created to be that way, right? So that we
Right.
can input and thoughts and care into each other's hearts and each other's vision.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also okay to look weird sometimes. And maybe it's like our own ego and our own fragility of like whatever that is to just look kind of weird for a bit. And
Absolutely.
it's okay. And I honestly, I just remember that I love that video and like of that weird guy, like he was odd, dancing by himself, and everybody's looking at him like he was like, oh, look at that guy.
Right?
And then somebody had joined him, and then but he didn't ask for people to join him. He was just doing it. But and then he attracted them.
Right.
And I think that's so cool if we're actually vulnerable and say, hey, I have this incredible idea. I think it's possible. You know, I think that people go, ooh, that's cool. And they'll like be attracted to that and come with you.
Well, and that's the exact thing too, right? People see other people do it, and all of a sudden they go, "Oh, it's possible. Oh,
Right.
you can dance in the park." I mean, so many times, oh, you can dance in the park. Oh, you can swim in the fountain. Oh, you can build a rocket that does that, right?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Things that people said nobody can do that, but they said we think we can, and so just watch us, right? You might be growing a different crop on your trees than I am, but when I see your trees growing, I go, oh, maybe mine will grow too. And so as we continue to tell the stories of change and innovation and hope, all of a sudden, even if your hope is different than mine, you start to move your hope meter a little bit differently, right? You
Yes.
have more permission and a little more possibility. And so
Right.
part, when we started out and all this stuff, we were the young professionals. We were the young crazy ones who were like, yeah,
Yes.
because we don't know any better. And we're not quite so young anymore. But we try to go give it back to those guys.
Yeah.
Say, let us exhort you.
Yes.
Don't go the path that someone else is laying out for you.
Right.
Blaze a path. Believe in something different. You might fail, but you'll learn as much from the failure and the community that grows from it as you would from the success.
Ding. In your book, you talk about three different types of roles: the pastor, the executive, and the prophet. And I really think that you were just talking about the prophet piece. And I think actually that's who you are. You're, I think, really prophetic. And I think as a doing your master's in foresight, you are a pastor and you are an executive, but you are also a prophet.
Right.
Like, so can you tell us like a little bit about the distinction of what that means and what that looks like?
Bigger picture or like in my life?
Sure, in your life.
Yeah, so to be prophetic, I come from a fairly charismatic church,
Okay.
but
Woo!
in general, to be prophetic is to help people see a different possibility, right? To call out not what is, but what could be.
Yes.
It's to help moderate the words of God to people so that they can receive them. And so doing that, we do that in work, we do that in the book.
Right. Yeah.
Let us tell you about what's possible. We do that all the time. And
Yeah.
so I think what that looks for me is being a pioneer.
Mm.
Pioneering is what I'm passionate about. The prophetic piece of my heart wants to start new things, wants
Yeah.
to the unreached peoples, wants, whether that's people who've never heard the gospel, which it sometimes is, or people who don't have hope for a better future,
Mm.
which it sometimes is. And
Yeah.
so helping people see that range, helping exhort them unto it, and going, keep running, you can do it.
Yeah. Right.
We need those people in industry and business and academia just as much as we need them in church.
For sure. I think more so because I think biblically God is always calling us into scary unknown places.
Yeah, for sure.
And and the poor disciples of Jesus, the whole time they're like, what is happening now?
Well, and even like you say like that, that's how we named our firm. The agency that Nick and I run is called Quite Uncommon. And that's really from the reference in 2 Samuel where it talks about in that time, visions from the Lord were rare, and the word of the Lord was quite uncommon, because
Wow. Oh.
that prophetic sense of people need that. They need that God-given vision. They need that to change it, because as we
That's
all
true.
that era, right? Things became
Mm-hmm.
very stuck, like you were saying, very fearful, very the same thing for years and years and centuries and centuries. And God's people are like, has God abandoned us? Because there wasn't someone to say, let me proclaim the word of the Lord to you.
Mm.
And then came Samuel, right? And there was a prophet again. So obviously we don't put ourselves in those shoes, but wanting to walk in that kind of calling, wanting to walk in that kind of ministry to the world, because it's so interesting, right? That vision is so uncommon, But even more than that, I find there are people who love to talk about vision, but can't actually give you ways to get to that vision.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. And at the end of the book, you said there's a lot of like visions that are still like on the shelf.
There are paper rockets that never get
Right.
built. People give up. They put it in a drawer and they go, well, that was a nice academic exercise, or we learned something from that, but it's too
Mm-hmm.
expensive, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
it's too long term or too whatever.
Mm.
What we wanted to go, maybe it's worth it. That's been the gift of COVID in so many ways, I think, is to help people get rid of their excuses.
Ooh.
Right? COVID has helped people go, oh, we can't do that, or we can't go online, or we can't figure out that problem, or we can't deal with that. Well, you don't have it. You don't have a reason now. You have no. You have to figure this out.
Yeah.
In God's mercy, right? He removes our excuses so that we have to figure it out. You have to figure out community that doesn't rely on
Mm.
always relied on. You have to figure out worship that doesn't rely on spectators in rows doing, God is, because he loves us and he wants to call us into a better future. He's saying, okay, push.
I know. You know what? I was just thinking. Okay. I was thinking a couple phrases that, what is it? Desperation is the mother of invention. But to be more biblical, it would be that God is actually putting these obstacles in our way to kind of push us and force us to do something different. Because obviously, status quo and what has been isn't working. And so he's like, hello, do you see this? Hello, do you see this? Hello. Okay, you don't see it. I'm gonna have you see it. You will see this. And we're like, okay. But like, Morgan. Hi, Morgan. She said, hope meter, amazing. I'm going to start monitoring my hope meter more closely, which is a goal, for 2021. I think we need hope. And then Caitlin, hi, and any other like comments or questions that you have. So, but I wanted to say, I guess I never thought about planning for the future and hope and how they're just so linked.
So linked, right? That's why
Yeah.
it does not disappoint us, because we need hope to pull us forward. We need hope so that we can journey with God. Like you were saying, when we don't know where it's going to go, when we're
Yeah.
the potential outcomes, when
Yeah.
in front of us feel insurmountable. The only reality we have is to go, God is with us. But we say that in a Sunday school way, like, it's okay, we shouldn't be scared. God, we want to say that in a meaningful way of going, we
Right.
hope, because God's put in us what we need. And
Right.
him, we're going to let the fire take out, what needs to be burned away, and we're going to trust that what remains is beautiful.
Mm.
Help us proceed forward in the calling that he has. Because I want to leave this world different than I found it. Like, I don't want to just have inhabited it for a season and then go, I want to leave fingerprints on it. And I can't do that. I can't do that in my own. Like, that can't be about me. That has to be about getting into that vision that he has and making the world different.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, I love how Jesus and like God through the prophets all the time is like, fear not. Like,
Right?
it's so good
We
that
be told
God
because we're
himself,
fearful.
he just acknowledges,
Yeah.
I see you. I know you're limited, and I know your first reaction is to be scared stiff. So,
but how rare is that, right? Like, I love, at least in that example, people were afraid because they saw the face of God. People were afraid because they saw what glory looked like face.
yeah.
I want to be afraid because I'm looking so hard into the things of God and I hear his voice. I don't want to be afraid because I'm so numb, because
Right.
I'm carried by the inertia of the world. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Those people. Like let's make it worth it, you know?
Yes.
Let's make it worth it and try something that no one's ever done before. Our glory, but because it's possible. I love it. Is it Edmund Hillary who says, "Why'd you climb Mount Everest?" Because it was there. Like, I want to
Wow.
that are possible just because they're possible. Like, let's go see what's on the other side of that mountain. And I think that part of our hope book is to get that kind of vision back in the church. Not let's do what 3 generations ago did. That was great for them, but let's go see what's on
Oh
the
my goodness. That's what I want to say to the church all the time. I'm like, we've been doing that since the 70s?
right.
That just is I'm over it. I'm bored.
Me too, girl. Me too.
I think that boredom is good too, because then boredom's like pushes you, whatever it takes to push you out of whatever rut you're in. So yeah.
So good.
That's really helpful. Thanks for answering my questions. A couple more questions. And if you are on with us, please do not hesitate to type in your questions or comments or anything you're learning at the moment. That'd be really great. I guess so. Hi, welcome to 2021. Somebody wants to return to sender. But how would you apply these principles to, if I may, to your situation in the US right now?
Yeah, so it's interesting, I'm trying to think about how to do this in a balanced way. I think it has brought out the power of the futures framework for me to watch the crisis that we face on the political level. Because people, whichever side they're on, they want change, right? And
Yes.
so they think that the answer to change is a policy or a person or a president, and that's the end of the process, right? And so helping people realize that we can't just replace a policy or a person, regardless of what your reason is or whatever, unless we start to think back through the intersections of the framework, how they identify and why, where they belong, who their affiliations are, why those affiliations are there, how and where they got it. Like, when we start looking at kind of and how they're going about it, it's really those things that rise up. And so recognizing that until we think differently about the beginning of the framework, identification and belonging, we're not going to feel differently.
Wow.
Different result at the end of the framework, which is about scaling and impact and governance, and so really seeing the framework as helping look at sustainable change, not band-aid change, helping people think through, like, how did we get to the situation that we're in? Like, people tell lots of different narratives about how we're in the situation we're in.
Yes.
But however that is, there's facets at every level of the framework of that.
That's amazing. So yeah, what I heard is that you just really have to figure out who you are, your identity. And in order to figure out your identity, you have to probably take a really hard look at your history. And what, I mean, I think if you have different futures that are possible, you have also different histories.
Ooh, come on.
You know what I mean? And I think it's not just one history and one future. I think it's various histories, but
exactly, right? And history tends to be written by the victors.
Ding!
And
I've been like saying that in 2020 so hard.
Right. So what do we do with that? Like, we need to read multiple. Is how I used to teach high school. Let's read the majority history, but let's read the minority history as well.
Thank
And
you.
why is this one different than this? Who got left out of the story? Who's writing the story, and why are they writing the story this way? I mean, that's exactly why we have the layers of the framework that we do. And I think for my country, unless we deal with all those questions, we're never going to have, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you're never going to have a change that I think everybody can gather around.
Yeah, and if you allow it to really shape your identity and really help you understand, you will have humility. My professor at seminary said true humility, Dr. Houston, said true humility is when you know your strengths and your weaknesses in full 100% truth.
Right.
Then you will have humility, because you will know you won't be too puffed up. You won't be too, I don't know, sabotage yourself, but then actually like move forward knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your faults, your sins, and your, what to celebrate. So
And that's the ethos, right? Like, they talk about, take a fearless moral inventory, because that's the only way you can change your life. When you've ruthlessly said, here's what I've done right, here's what I've done wrong, nothing hidden, nothing held back, and in full communication. So I see the question, how do you get people to live that way, right? I think it starts with that. It starts with, I'm not interested in others until I see myself rightly.
right.
And when I see myself rightly, then I have a lot more grace for other people.
Yeah.
Just talking about that this weekend. I'm teaching a class in my church, and we were talking about how do we not bring our trauma from past experiences into this experience. And I'm like, until we're open and honest about it, because it's part of my story and yours is part of your story. And
totally.
Then all of a sudden I'm more interested in your life.
Yeah.
I see how it impacts us all.
Well, I was also listening to, what was it, Brene Brown recently,
Yes.
on trauma.
Come on.
And how in the world you work through trauma. And I don't think it's like shutting it down. I don't think it's editing it out of your own story. I think we need to, there's various pieces that she said, or the people, it was two women that were talking about articulating it. You actually have to get it out there, like, to people who love you. But then also you need to like physically work it out, meaning go for a walk, go for a run, beat up a punching bag or something like that. Emotionally let yourself feel all the feels, and so that you can like it's basically you have to like process in using all of your senses. And so I would say, like, how would you get people to listen with our open hearts and minds? It's like starting and with yourself, and actually being the first to be that weirdo dancing on that hill, or you know what I mean, and just like, I'm gonna like live more vulnerably, and I'm gonna do it. So that was also a word that came to me in 2020, was that I have to be more vulnerable, which is why I even started these IG lives, because I'm like, I need to like get it out there, but I also want to invite friends that I love with all of my heart, soul, mind, strength, to come with me.
Right. So good. Well, we're integrated people, right? Mind, body, and spirit. We were made to be that way, and we can't live any other way. Some people saw on Instagram, I started juicing this week, because
I saw that.
Right? And we all do. Sometimes it's take a run. Sometimes it's eat differently. Sometimes for Nick, it's be a triathlete like a crazy person, but we can't isolate those parts of our lives. And it's really easy, I think, with so many of us so isolated right now, to feel like we can work it just in our head, or just in like, we can isolate those things out. But I think that's back to, we have to work harder, to connect things and to keep those things connected.
Yeah, and I think with it, when it comes to just even dreaming and hoping for a better future. I think it starts as well with like what Morgan said at the end of her question was curiosity.
Yeah. Right? People are the most fascinating thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's my thing. Like, people are
Yeah.
so fascinating. God's fascinated by people. It's
Yes.
He's going to rescue out of this earth and take it with him. So I want to be fascinated. So if I'm not feeling curious or like connected, I start to go, God, why are you interested in this person? What amazes you about them? You know,
Mm.
questions. Like, it's part of me wanting to be in his image. Like, he sees people that way. I need to learn to. And sometimes it comes easier than other times. But we have to press into that and see what we learn.
Yeah. Aw, he dances in the aisles. Oh, yeah. Morgan's husband, Ian. Yeah. Such a lovely spirit. Um, yeah, I love that word curiosity though, because I think that if you allow yourself to actually follow those little bunny trails or rabbit trails of curiosity, and I think that you'll just discover and tap into people, and
Yeah.
then you'll tap into their hopes and their dreams and their hurts too. Like, it's not just curiosity for fun, but it's also curiosity into other histories and what does it mean to be a Black person in the US in 2021. And for us in Canada, for sure, it's also Indigenous peoples. And I invited my friend to speak to my leadership class this last fall on indigenous leadership.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I'm curious, what does that look like?
What does it look like, right?
Oh,
And
it's actually beautiful.
right, it is, right? And we need
Yeah.
to know because we're going to be incomplete until we know. And I think it's that. I think the other element of curiosity that I love because learning and understanding makes sense. Like, that's great, but that's just part of curiosity. Curiosity is figuring out how to do. It's empowering. You know, it's like when my mom asked me what's wrong with her Fitbit, and I don't know. I don't have a Fitbit.
Right.
And I start to Google and I go, oh, this is what it is. And so then you start to realize that curiosity enables you to
Yeah.
figure stuff out. And all of a sudden, the next time you're faced with a problem, you don't see the small piece of the problem. You start to go, okay, if I figure that out, I'll figure that out. And it moves you.
Oh,
That's another element of why curiosity helps us in that rigidity, that inertia that so many times we find ourselves stuck in.
yeah, I don't want people to be moving or planning because of out of obligation.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the worst. Nobody wants to do that, or because they're forced to, unless it's forced by God.
Yeah. Exactly.
But because they're moved but out of curiosity, out of compassion, out of empathy, out of love, out of just a desire to climb Mount Everest because it's there, it's like whatever it is, tap into that. So I have one last question. Um, hey, Skytland. Good of you to join. So, as I said before, if you have any questions for Allie,
Doesn't get
now is the time.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. So Morgan was like, we limit ourselves so much by our fear of showing how little we know. That's true. I think our egos really prevent us from actually doing what we're supposed to do, as well as honestly I sabotage myself.
Most certainly. Most people do, right? Out of ego or out of fear or whatever the element might be.
Yeah. And that's obviously not helpful. I mean, so I've had to have serious conversations with myself.
Hello, self.
Hello.
That's self.
Let's have a little chat. um, so my question, I guess, and then we can maybe just wrap unless people have questions, is what is your preferred future?
Mm. So my preferred future in my life is still pretty open because I like to try different things and explore different elements. And my preferred future is I would like to live in some place beautiful with lots of trees and mountains. This is part of it, right? Because we're
Yeah.
aesthetic people, and I think all of that is a reality. I would like a lot of free time to write.
Yes.
But I think my preferred future is really, my passion is about building and launching teams and helping them do their calling better. And so
Yeah.
that takes finding new ways. And I feel like every year I'm doing a little bit more of that. But every step, finding ways to do that, finding ways to contribute to that, finding ways to help other teams do that. So
Mm-hmm.
for each other. So making that a reality.
Yeah. I am so really, really pleased to hear that because I think Katie agrees. You're such an inspiration. Really, you are.
Maybe isn't it?
And you're just such a joy to work with and to be a friend to because you're just honestly really hope filled and inspiring, and you just like to bring other people along with you, and I'm good. I'm here for the ride. And for us to collaborate more whenever and however possible in the future would be such a joy.
I look forward to it. It's going to be great times.
Yeah. So I'm always thinking, how in the world can Allie, Nick, and I work together more in the future? And so you're not off my radar. I haven't forgotten.
Okay, good. We're happy to be on your radar. We're always looking for new things, right? Because it's the curiosity. Like we don't want to codify the preferred future so much because we're like, next week, hopefully we'll see new people and find out new things and learn new to take us to places we can't imagine now. And it's exciting for us. And so we want.
Yeah. I'm also glad you didn't say, oh, yes, my preferred future is world domination.
No, no,
No.
not at all. I think actually the older it's interesting when we're young, we want to be the big person, we want to be the star. I feel like the older I get, the more I want to be the small person. Like the more the person behind the curtain, like not in front of it. Like the more I want to connect that.
I love it.
Probably the wisdom of the older we get, right?
Yeah. This guy has called me, I think, the Wizard of Oz.
Well, there you go.
And I think it's a compliment. But also, I think I want to be the person that's supporting other people to do their thing too. So yeah, for me to do stuff, but yeah, for me to like be super supportive and be really there and supportive of other people, especially the young ones.
Exactly. Right. I mean, it's how Jesus multiplied the entire life, right? He didn't just do what he did. He did that and then he equipped 12 people and said, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go put it in you. And so I'm kind of entering into that phase of I want to identify who more of those people are that we can put life into, like Katie. Katie's been someone she's off doing amazing things, right? And so helping launch those people that they can go have more impact than we could have ever had ourselves.
Yeah. So Kitty said, Allie's wisdom has taught me that holding possibilities can often lead you in directions you would have never expected, which is true.
Right.
And it's kind of the cool stuff about the process and the journey. It's like you actually don't know. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. That wasn't the plan, but it's actually better.
Right? It is. It
Just,
is. That's faith, right?
yeah.
Back where we started, right? That's not having fear, but it's faith. It's saying God is the giver of good things, and we trust him. And so let's keep walking and see where we get together.
Yeah.
That's what he's made us to do.
Oof, I like it. And of course, with Jesus, he actually just left. But he didn't quite
Right?
leave us. But he's like,
But
I'm
he's
out.
back. So well, so
Wow.
talk to you, friend. You're a blessing and a joy. And
You are too.
thanks for reading the book and passing
Yes.
about it to people who need to know. We're really grateful for that and look forward to new creative ways to collaborate together.
I'm excited. I am excited for the future. And thanks for giving me hope and inspiration as usual. But yeah, big hugs to you and to Nick, wherever you are, and your lovely family. And yeah, I'm going to be posting my Amazon recommendation soon.
Please do.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. God bless.
Bye.